So I'm just actually looking at this voting system for Wales, because I didn't realise that they got I thought each region and area just had one representative in the Senate, right? But they've got a number of representatives in the Senate. Now they've got these two different systems alongside each other, right? You vote for. They're saying that you vote for a person you want to represent an area, but then you vote for a party or person, right? But obviously not all people belong to a party. It's all percentage. It's all done by splitting percentages up. To be honest, I think this is absolute tosh. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, stupid system. So here's this. This is the area for Mid and West Wales, right? This is the Mid and West Wales area results. So this is when that Eleanor Morgan got elected, and she's only using a normal name here. And then underneath her, there's this Joyce Watson as well, but there's no numbers next to it. I'm not too sure exactly what is going on here with this, because the Conservative, it said, was not elected, even though they got 63827 votes. And this Eleanor Morgan was elected on 61733. Plaid Cymru actually got a lot of votes on there. And then you've got these minorities. 4 seats. I don't know why the Conservative wasn't elected. Then share of the votes. Plaid Cymru 27%. Welsh Conservative 27%. And Welsh Labour 26%. The problem with this is, right, I think this system is a scam. It has to be a scam, because anything that needs to be ridiculously complicated is a gimmick, right? Anything where you do something fancy with multiple people and split it and divide it, and then you even to suggest or a concept that, hey, let's have you vote one vote for a person that you want to represent an area, then an area that you want to be represented by a party or person. When you start doing stuff like that, there's something definitely suspicious going on. Just to try and think of it, right? What I think this is, right, is to make sure that Labour and the Conservatives get in, right? This is to make sure that the main parties always get in. It's a little bit like this thing of having a mayor, right? You know, they had they've created these new mayors, right? So with social media and with like Facebook and YouTube, and you've got all these alternative movements, like Neil Oliver and John Campbell and so forth. So there's a risk or threat that they could take over, or even Liberal Democrats win, right? And they might get loads more councillors, right? And then they get control of the council, right? And this is to do with GB News and Rees Morgan, the whole wrestling match with the handlebars of the government, right? Because they know that people who independent people have got a voice now, right? Now, when they have the mayor of a whole county, no matter who takes over the council, you've still got one mayor, which might be Labour or whatever, so they're still overseeing the whole thing. That is what I think's going on to try and keep control. Now, all this devolution of government is a load of tosh, right? What's happening with this Welsh Senate is this. This is my kind of like, this is just a no-brainer, right? This is a straight-up, absolute no-brainer. It's not complicated, right? The main parties have come up with a system with the Senate, right, to make certain that absolutely the main parties are going to get a seat in there, and at least the like Labour and basically Conservative and Labour are going to get a seat, because they're big parties, right? They've got a lot of support, and they're not going to fail to get a seat in there on this, and that's what this is about. With this new wave movement, there's a chance that independents or different people can or could, right? But there's absolutely no chance with this system, because even if the Green Party and Liberal Democrats suddenly, pulled some miracle out of the bag and got loads of votes, or a lot of people started to go off the main parties, those Labour and Conservative parties have got an absolute core following who are just not ever going to vote anywhere other than that way. Mainly the older people that they've betrayed, and that is going to make sure that on this system, it's unlikely that they're going to fail to get someone elected in every area. So what this system does is it makes sure that Labour and the Tories will get people in every area, even if it's just one, right? They won't fail to do it just in case, right? And that is absolutely what this is about. It's about making sure and making it look like they're giving other people a chance, like, oh, we've got a few Greens in here now and Lib Dems, right? But, Labour and Tories are always going to get in. Now, when it comes to this Ellen Morgan, right, I don't know what's going on with Joyce Watson. I'm not sure what's going on with that, unless they got that between them, just Welsh Labour. So, yeah, that's the second. I think that's the second vote was voted for what? Just people voted for Welsh Labour, and there's two of them. But that Ellen Morgan got in. I don't know what the hell was going on with that Conservative vote there when it says not elected. Now, did Ellen Morgan, Baroness Ely, did she win because she's Baroness Ely? Did the peerage and popularity give her an advantage? Well, she didn't lose, did she? She did win, right? And I don't know how many other barons and baronesses are in the Senate. I haven't checked, but she definitely won. So you could say that you could give evidence in a court that a peerage, a title, a status give her an electoral advantage, right, of popularity. And that's what's not meant to happen. Now, but this is the thing. You might doubt that, because then you look at it and you say, well, it's actually quite a three-way split between the main parties. In fact, the Plaid Cymru, the Welsh Conservative and Welsh Labour really have got a three-way split. So that's a three-way domination, right? That's exactly what the system is designed to do, is to make sure that no matter what happens, no matter what three-cup and ball trick you do, the Labour and Conservatives are never going to fail to get someone in, right? And that's why I think the whole thing should be scrapped. It's an absolute con. It's a taking over the world, devolution scam, Tony Blair, World Economic Forum con, right? The whole thing's just and it's an absolute total waste of money. The Welsh government are mainly doing things that people don't want or need, right? Wasting absolutely loads of money, and they're not doing anything that Parliament couldn't do. What's the point in having MPs still in Wales for Parliament? The whole thing is an absolute, complete shamble and utter waste of time, right? And I think a lot of people have realised that now, and it just actually creates more and more and more arguments and division. Now, this is actually what I've realised. Now, I've made another video about Baroness Ely and the fact that you can't be common people can't cast their votes to elect peers, right? They're not allowed. This was decided with Viscount Stansgate, right? You've got to renounce your title if you want to be a commoner and be elected by the commoners, right? And don't say that it's not the same for the Senate, because it's not about whether it's a Senate. It's the difference between a peer and a common person, right? MPs are common people, and so are Senate, right? We're commoners, right? You don't. Peers aren't elected, right? It's for life, and you're meant. The point of the peerage is to serve in the Lords, right? You don't have a peerage and then get removed. So I'm not working in the House of Lords anymore. I want to work in the Senate. No. The point of the peerage is to be a member of the House of Lords, right? But further than this, right, let's get back onto this other thing right now. What I've actually realised is it's actually more about the Labour and Conservatives, because Keir Starmer's given him absolutely the diamond evidence, the gem, the statement. This is like this is like the golden quote. This is like the masterpiece piece of testimony ever spoken from a man's mouth in the history of the country ever, right? And that is Keir Starmer, previous Director of Public Prosecutions, the Prime Minister of England, right? I quote, "You will never stand for Labour again," right? This is what he said to his to the MPs, the members of Parliament who were Labour, who were going to vote the against what he wanted them to do, right? He said, "You will never stand for Labour again," right? So you won't represent Labour. Does he own the party? Did he buy the party? Has he bought the party? Is he Zaya Youssef? Does he own the Labour Party? Did he buy it? How much did he buy it for? Right? I thought the Labour Party voters decided who was in charge. This is the thing. Starmer, right, has said that Keir Starmer has given evidence to the country, to the nation at large, proof, a statement that it is the Labour Party itself, the colour red, the name, the brand, right? The brand, Labour, which is the cause, the power which gets people elected into seats, standing for, they're not voting for John Smith or Joe Bloggs or, Patrick Johnson. Keir Starmer made it very, very, very clear that the only reason you're in Parliament is because you represented Labour. You stood for Labour. You held the Labour flag. And they didn't really vote for you. They voted for the Labour Party, right? And, if you don't vote my way, you'll never represent that party again. And therefore, you aren't going to get elected, right? That's what Keir Starmer meant. He meant that the only reason that you are in Parliament and you got elected was because you were standing for the Labour Party, right? No one would vote for you, right, if you just went and stood for election, right? Therefore, you yourself, you aren't popular. You're not popular. You've got zero value. If you don't vote my way, you're only good for my votes, right? You're only good for my votes. If you don't vote my way, you're not worth anything to me. You've got no value, right? And you could never get elected, on your own name or on your own person. You're worthless, effectively, right? You're only of worth if you're voting the way that I want you to vote, right? So he's saying that their popularity in their vote, the power, the electoral power and force was not down to them. Anyone could have stood for Labour. It could have been, Tom, Dick, Harry, Paul, Peter, John, Sweeney, Swoony, Uni, Junie, right? Anyone. Squirrel, right? You could paint a fucking squirrel red, right? And it could get elected if it was standing for Labour. It's Labour, apparently according to Starmer, that people are voting for. Not Michael, Mick, Terry, John, Paul, Lucy, right? They're voting for Labour. Now, this is a breakthrough revelation when you get into election law and you actually start to realise what is going on and what is happening. by when you learn what is meant to be illegal, what is meant to be unlawful, right? Now, this is the thing, and we could do some maths and equations here. If, right, this is like algebra and equations, right? If Labour equals, right, popularity, power to get elected, because people like Labour, it's popular, right? If Labour is like a jacket, right, a red jacket, right? If you put the red jacket on, people vote for you, right? The red jacket makes you popular, right? You could put it on a dog and people would vote for it, right? Wearing the Labour jacket, right, this is an analogy, right? This is an example, right? Makes you popular. So what Starmer is saying to those MPs is that if you don't vote my way, right, then you will never wear that red jacket again, right? And you won't get the popular vote. And next election you're gone, right? That's what he's saying. So it's an actual objective popularity. Now, this element of popularity, this thing, you could... It doesn't have to be a red Labour jacket, right? But it is Labour, right? It effectively is the faculty of the Labour Party, right? Now, what's the value of that? What's it worth? How much is it worth? What is the value of it? What is it worth? Now, I know a councillor in Wales who she's just got elected and she stood for the Conservative Party, right? Apparently they haven't... from what I've heard, they haven't given her loads of conditions that she's got to do this, she's got to do that, and so forth and so forth. But she stood for the Conservatives. If she hadn't have done, she might not have got elected independent. She might have done, but she stood for the Conservatives, and it got her elected into a seat, right? Now, this is the thing. When we look at the election law, we've got to scrutinise the wording extremely carefully, very, very carefully, right? Now, in the clause which I'm scrutinising at the moment, in the 1948 and 1949 Act, it's Section 42 in the 1948 Act and Section 63, I think, in the 1949 Act, right? But it's the same legislation. It says that they cannot present the candidate, right? The candidate cannot be shown to the public or presented in any way to make them popular. But it says directly, or all this legislation is also direct, whether directly or indirectly, but also the provision of entertainment. Now, there's a hell of a lot of law being broken by the newspapers and press and so forth, because it bores them to death, when you pull this legislation out, because they'd think that, it would be like, some kind of like grey John Major world in the news, right? Even though they're quite happy, with all their freak accidents and incidents occurring, right? I don't know what Jeremy Vine would do on the BBC, but this is the thing, right? Now, the entertainment element, that is easy to understand, right? Because, all internet and media and newspapers and adverts and all things like that are entertainment, as if people are being entertained, right? And you can get right into what is entertainment. Like, if you go into a travel lodge, right, and you don't pay anything, and it's raining or snowing, and there's like a little reception room, and you've got a couple of seats, and you sit down there, right, and you wait for it to stop raining, right? That is free, and they're entertaining you for free, particularly if you get to speak to people when they're coming past, or even the receptionist, because she's entertaining you, right? The receptionist is entertaining you with conversation for free, and you got a free seat as well. You didn't pay for anything. That is the provision of free entertainment while it's snowing outside, right? That's the definition of it, right? Now, and there's also some definitions of, if you appear on a stage, even if you're not part of the show, if you are put on display, you are part of the entertainment. And I need to find out where I put that, because I've saved that somewhere. That's a very old definition going back to the 1600s as well, that you don't necessarily have to be being paid by a theatre to be part of the entertainment, right? Like for example, if they have someone in the audience, right, if a juggler says, come over here and hold this for me, and I'll put this paper thing in your mouth, and then, participating in a magic trick, right, that is you provide entertainment, right? Okay, if you know, so what they're saying is, if you basically get up on the soapbox or join in or participate or engage with them, you become part of the entertainment, regardless of what money transfers, right? That's another legal basis and principle, right? So now, coming back to the Representation of People Act, just on the basis of the candidate. Now they're not saying a party, but you cannot vote for a party, because if you could vote for a party, you wouldn't need people, right? You cannot vote for a party. It is impossible, because you are voting for living, breathing humans to do the job, unless they switch over to robots and AI, right? You can't do it. The concept doesn't exist, because you are voting for a human being, right? Now automatically makes me suspicious of all this stupid Senate, double blind, two vote thing to do with, vote for the person, then vote for the party, right? You can't vote for a party, no matter how they're selling it to you or explaining it or trying to pull the wool over your eyes. It's a con, right? It's a trick. You cannot vote for a party. You can only vote for people, because if there aren't any people, there's no one to represent. Now, with this whole candidate thing, it's all about the candidate, because that's the only people you can vote for. You write down the name of a person. If there isn't a living human, there's no one to be elected, right? So it's always a candidate. But what makes a candidate popular? Well, if people know, if they're told about them and know about them, because if you don't know about someone, then you just don't know they exist, right? And also any amount of anything that gets you to like them, right? Or any chance they've got to explain policies or anything, any communication, right? Other than putting it through the letterbox, right? So all these things. But this is when we get to the Labour and Conservative element of it. And I've only just kind of realised this in the last couple of days with this Zaya Youssef, right? Because I'm like, why is the news? Why is everyone's talking about this Zaya Youssef guy, right? Oh, Zaya Youssef went for a walk in the park. Zaya Youssef went to buy a pie. He had fish and chips on Tuesday. He stood up. He sat down. Now he's left Reform. Now he's joined it again. This is funny. There's a constant stream, right, of promotion of Zaya Youssef. He's like in the news all the time. It's like getting free mentions, right? Free mentions. It's like he's been put into the public consciousness and minds, but a constant stream. But he's not even standing, right? But it's advertising reform, and all of their candidates and members, right, are getting a boost from it, right? Because it's making the party trending. It's trending the party, right? This constant Youssef thing is trending the party. Now, this is the thing, right? Now, let's go back to his Keir Starmer model, right? If you don't do what I say, you'll never stand for the Labour Party ever again, right? Never, right? So that means that you'll never be elected, right? You're never going to get elected unless you do what I say, because you're not going to wear the jacket, right? And it's a jacket that gets you elected. Without a jacket, you're nothing, right? You're useless. You're worthless. If you don't vote how I tell you, right, then you're no good to me. You're not worth anything to me, right? Well, what about the constituents? Fuck the constituents. Does it look like we're doing what the constituents want, right? I'm in charge of this country. I'm Keir Starmer, right? This is the thing. Now, with the element of popularity, the magic red jacket, right? The magic Labour cloak, right? The popularity jacket, right? Where, put this on and you'll be popular, you'll be famous, whatever, right? We're going to make you a Starmer, right? So, now, with GB News, right? Now, Reform UK have got, donors, sponsors, money and so forth, right? So they can, they can pay for Nigel Farage to go to Clacton-on-Sea, and he can stand on a little stage and, people are walking around, right? And, Farage can send flyers out to people or make an advertisement or, pay an expensive, artist to do a billboard design like they did with that, like the Conservatives did, with that Alex Salmon Ed Miliband advert, pay them some money and have billboards around the country, right? But when you start getting the TV and media, right, and they're doing something for these parties but not others, you're breaking the law then, because it's independent candidates are severely disadvantaged, right? And even if you get them all on and say, this is fair because we're getting everyone on, but they're giving every single one of them boosts, and they're trying to, it's making people who, I wasn't going to vote because I hate this government, and then the TV's got them all on. No, come on, we're going to have them all on now. Give them all a chance to say something, come on. They're encouraging everyone to vote when they might have not been happy with the government and didn't think that they deserved to have votes, right? But the TV is going to persuade them otherwise for all of them, right? So they're all going to get an advantage. This is where Jeremy Vine probably is, short of a couple of sandwiches short of a spitting image caricature, they could have Jeremy Vine as on a penny farthing as a spitting image character, could have even probably been. They could have done him a little bit like the John Major one, right, or something like that, in sepia colour or something maybe, or possibly even like in a bright Hawaiian shirt or something like that. I don't know, right? But anyway, so this popularity now, the main political parties, Labour and the Conservative. Now this is the blind, double, triple, quadruple blind con of the ages, right? Now, with that model that I said earlier, right, you got this Zahir Yusuf, right? Zahir Yusuf sits up, Zahir Yusuf stands down, Zahir Yusuf goes to the beach, Zahir Yusuf walks his dog, Zahir Yusuf goes to the park. This is like Boris Johnson, right? Boris Johnson went jogging, or Boris Johnson ate a banana, or Boris Johnson milked a cow, or whatever. But they're just talking about Boris Johnson all the time. Yes, Boris. So this is populism. This is celebritism, right? And this is the thing. If you are going to get elected into government, you can't touch that because it's criminal. It's a corrupt and illegal practice. Now, this is the thing. Now, when you are attaching the red Labour jacket, right? This is the thing. You are getting a massive, huge popularity boost because as Keir Starmer gave evidence. A statement of fact and evidence, right? You're nothing. You're worthless. If you don't, you're the only reason you're in Parliament is because you stood for the Labour Party, right? If you did not wear that jacket, you would not even get a sniff of votes, right? So, do what we say, do what I say, or you'll never wear that jacket again, and in your history you're gone. You're no one. You literally are fucking nobody. You are no one. You could not get 3 votes and a pea sandwich. Nothing, right? Without that Labour jacket on. So you vote our way, or you will never stand for Labour again, because that is all that ever got you elected, right? Let's get that clear. So it's a magic jacket that gets anyone elected who wears it. And in the Senate, where they've got the guaranteed multiple seats, right, and there's a guaranteed people who like multiple parties, red and blue are absolutely cannot lose, right? They can't lose. It's like, never mind having a dice with, instead of like one colour on each side, you got red on 3 sides, and then you got a double chance of winning. You might as well have one dice that has got, red on every side, when you roll it, you can't lose, right? Labour are going to get in at least one person in every single area, because then they're guaranteed to always, forever and ever, be in the Welsh Senedd, right? And have a stake in it. This is stakeholder. This is a stakeholder, a long-term, permanent stakeholder model. You might as well call it the implantation model, where you got main parties who are never ever going to not get someone in, right? As long as they keep those core followers, right? Or they have to really piss people off, and really not vote for them, which is unlikely, right? So now, this Labour and Tory thing, right? So this is where the magic has been happening. And this is the television. This is where the television and newspapers, because what I've realised is that they're always talking about Labour and the Conservatives all the time. They're Labour this, Labour that, It's literally a drip feed, a constant, permanent, long-term, ongoing advertisement for the Labour and Tories. Now, really, what I've realised is that Labour and the Conservative Party, right, the party is only really to do with getting elected, right? Because you're meant to vote for a person, right? But they stand for a party. But it's the party, the agent and the party where the restrictions are on, right? Because it's what it's called. It's a party spending fund. That's why it's called the Conservative Party, and that's why they get donations. They donate to the party. Why do they donate to the party? So it can fund elections and campaigns. That means that the entire money for the Conservatives or Labour that's donated and given is for election campaigns and parties, right? It's not the government, right? Therefore, right, everything that those entities do has to be put through agents and accounted for and recorded, right? This is why, obviously, right, when they're in an election, they can only spend a certain amount, right? And this is what is to be a fair competition. And then when GB News give them an extra boost, right, that's cheating, right? Because they got a boost. It's like on Facebook when you put a post and it says, do you want to boost this post, right? You got to pay the money, right? That means they want to get money out of you, right? But what the Reform are getting a boost for free for GB News? Well, it's not free because it's costing hundreds of thousands of pounds, but they aren't paying for it. And the independent candidates definitely aren't getting anywhere near as much of a boost, right? But this is the thing, right? Now, when they do publicity stunts and when they get in the press, right, when they manage to get in the press, which is like every day, right, they're getting a constant boost, an ongoing, continuous, a good example, I think, what's just come to mind now is that the BBC have this kind of like this theory, which is that they've monitored pop stars when they do like Top of the Pops and, like the BBC charts, right? And they worked out that, if someone becomes a pop star like Chesney Hawkes or something, right, and they do a couple of music albums and so forth, apparently, this is according to the BBC, this is evidence, right? This is evidence that can be given in court because this is the data that they use they've got professionals who calculate it and work it all out, right? This is what populist research and marketing and psychology is based on, right? They say that a person usually keeps in the public consciousness for about 3 years, and then they gradually fade out and people kind of sort of like forget about them, right? Like as a kind of like mainstream character or person or band or movie star or whatever, right? And they've got to keep doing stuff. Obviously, people have got their things. There's people who like them, but we're talking about, relevant, contemporary, in the kind of like general consciousness of the people, right? They reckon it's about 3 years. Now, they might be right or wrong about that, but that's what they said, right, in a programme, right? It might have even been on BBC Radio 2, actually. It might have said that, right? One of the presenters. So, now, this is the thing. If that's true, if someone gets in the charts and then they remain popular for about 3 years until people have forgotten about them, right? Now, what happens if, the radio are constantly playing certain songs all the time and keeping them popular, right? They only keep popular if the radio keeps playing their songs. Like you've got, you had these pop pickers. You had Steve Wright. He always played status quo. And the people always requested it, right? You could have played a different song every day. It's like on Bandcamp, so you never hear the same song twice. In fact, I've been enjoying myself on Bandcamp because it just got absolutely completely random music and you never hear the same song twice ever again. I mean, I just never ever listen to the same song ever again, really. It is all new. Right? Can you imagine if the radio had always been like that, right? But they like to have household names and have people popular. In fact, they've created this kind of keeping people in popularity in the public consciousness, right? So now when they are always mentioning the Labour Party, right, and the Tories in the news all the time, they are holding them in the public consciousness and keeping them there, right? Now, you might say, well, yeah, but those people get elected. Well, yeah, but why are they getting elected again and again and again and again and again and again? This is the thing, right? Now, what I've realised is, why are the news or newspapers saying the word Labour or Conservatives when there's not an election on, right? Because it's like, unless there's a by-election on, right, or it's a local council election coming up, or parliamentary election, why is anyone interested in Labour or the Conservatives? Because they're not actually allowed to mention. You can only mention. When it says this advertisement is paid for by Rachel Reeves, right? They still do that now, right? Because they're still trying to pretend that there's some election law left that they're following, right? So now Rachel Reeves is like, oh, this advertisement was paid for by Rachel Reeves, right? Okay, but that is the only time that you should ever hear her freaking name mentioned, ever, or see it, unless you get a leaflet through your letterbox, right? Or the election is on and they're telling you who won, right? Or that, don't forget to go out and vote next week, right? But, why do they need to tell you that when the council is putting a fucking leaflet through every single person's letterbox, right? Now, this Conservative, Labour, right? It's like the Coronation Street tune. It might as well be, right? It might as well be, don't forget to vote Labour next week. Right? This thing, they're not actually allowed to be talking about Labour is a political party that you vote for in an election, right? It's not actually there to entertain people, Zayef went for a sandwich and now he stood up, now he sat down, now he went to the zoo and had a ride on a donkey, right? The newspaper's meant to have stories, someone got shot, someone got run over, someone had a car broken into, someone won a hockey match at school, right? Now, Greta Thunberg's on a yacht getting kidnapped in, Islamabad or whatever, right? This is the thing. We're not actually supposed to hear anything about the Labour Party or Conservative Party at all from the newspapers, right? Unless the Labour Party puts an advert in there. Now, you get press releases, right? I can't see how it is lawful for the Conservative Party or Labour Party to put a press release out, right? Because that's just like Jeremy Vine. Oh, we'll give everyone a chance to put a press release out. Yeah, right, honest. They didn't. They can't actually be a conversation point. And they're not actually meant to be a conversational point in casual conversation or entertainment, which is broadcast and entertainment, by monies on broadcasting equipment and funds, unless they've paid for it, right? And this is the big mind blower. So they're being kept relevant and popular by the press and TV, and it's actually illegal because it's giving them the popularity. Now, the only thing is, you say, well, it says the candidate, right? But it says anything that actually gives an advantage to the candidate's popularity, right? Now, but remember, none of the candidates, according to Starmer, are popular. They aren't. They have zero value, not nil, right? According to Starmer, their value is nothing, right? They'll never stand for Labour ever again, right? If they don't vote his way, if they do not vote his way, they are of no value to him or his party, right? Zero. They won't get elected. They cannot get elected. It isn't possible to get elected, right? So they'll never wear the Labour jacket ever again. Therefore, they'll never get elected because it's only the Labour jacket which gives them the election. Now, and why is that? Because the TV and media won't shut up talking about it all the time on and on. And Boris as well with his stunts. And this is that now I've actually realised what publicity stunt means, right? And these two parties have been doing more than a publicity stunt. They've been doing a publicity tumbler, a tombola, 24-hour, 24/7, 365 days of the year fest. A corrupt and illegal practice of immense time immemorial proportions, and it is the newspapers have been doing it, and they've also been illegally charging VAT to independent persons who want to try and start out small, or petitions to get signatures, to get things put through Parliament, been illegally charging them VAT. Yet they've been calling out Lord Hanningfield for scamming accounts and scamming his finances when they've been ripping off the country and making sure that their stories, their content, they promoted the Lord Hanningfield story. Why don't they just investigate it and then, get a private prosecutor and prosecute him? They wanted to make a big deal out of it. They're promoting their investigations, their causes, their everything, right? And they're now extorting, if you want a newspaper quarter page, it's 750 quid or whatever, right? Plus VAT, or in 500 quid plus VAT or whatever, right? And the classified ads, which you could get for cheap, like a little column, a little sniff of a little snorty line of a Boris Johnson column, right? Which was very easy to access on a computer system and book very easily and efficiently without even having to talk to anyone, right? It's just weddings and funerals around here, weddings, funerals, and graduations, and we can't put any of those petitions in there. It's just deaths, life, death, marriage, funerals, life, death, funeral. That's all life's about. Life, death, funeral, marriages, graduation, none of this petition business. Oh, well, I want a little couple of words in there, but, this is the thing. Oh, no, we'll get those straight out of there, right? This is the thing. So, no 35, no little £35 little square for you in there, like in just very nice and, just 35 quid, 10 seconds, just bang a little advert in the newspaper in like 10 seconds, 35 quid, boom. It's none of that. Not even any of that, right? This is the thing. So just elbowing us out of there. So it turns out that it's the newspapers who are the corrupt fiddlers, right? Fiddler on the Roof, keeping small independents out and keeping Labour and the Conservatives relevant, just like Coronation Street theme tune is kept relevant, or EastEnders theme tune is kept relevant. In fact, it's a very good example, just because it's on, it's just because it's there, right? I mean, okay, what would you like to watch now? Oh, well, there's not really much choice, is there? Corrie again, or Emmerdale. Ooh, Corrie, Emmerdale, Corrie. Ooh, it's hard to make my mind up, You've got to put your tick in the box somewhere. Corrie, Emmerdale, Corrie. We've got to toss up between the two, or it could be Brookside Close, a bit of Lib Dem action going on. I don't know which to watch. There's some spoiled for choice, That's all they're offering, That's all they're talking about, Tories, Labour, Tories. So, and this is how they've been doing it, and it actually is one concerted, corrupt practice. The whole thing is a corrupt practice. What I actually do is I ban them from all elections. You can ban people from standing again, and you can sue. You know, I'd sue them for what I'd for how many years they've been doing it, corrupt practice. I'd sue them for pretty much however much they've got. You know, how much have the Tories got? You know, 80 million, whatever. I'd sue them for that, right? And then gone, toof. You know, although then again, you know, then you know, they just, you know, you get some, oil baron coming along and, you know, just giving him it back again. You know, this is the thing, right? You know, because they're just getting it thrown at him, the money. So, I mean, the Conservative Party, there needs, you know, courts are meant to have put press bans on. You know, like when there's a court case, the courts say, like, no, you're not allowed to talk about this. Have you noticed, where are the election petitions where they go, oh, right, you know, and by the way, we're putting a press ban on, so you're not allowed to talk about the Conservative Party or the Tories in the news again, unless there actually is an election on, right? You know, not, you know, don't mention it, you know? Why are Ofcom suing them every time they say Conservative or Tory? This is the thing, right? Who's got £5,000 for an election petition? No one, right? So the whole thing, actually, I mean, I would make political parties illegal because it's the only way to do it. Just make them illegal, right? And then they go, oh no, it's a hung parliament. How can we form a government? Look, look, it's diversity and inclusion. Megalord Starmer, the man, the diversity and inclusion man. I am the diversity and inclusion man. He's the man, the diversity and inclusion man. You know, everyone's welcome here. Oh well, you could have a government full of independents and get along then, couldn't you? With diversity and inclusion that epic, you know. This is the diversity and inclusion epic master. You know, who needs a political party apparently. Not that you'd stand for it if you didn't vote his way, right? You know, this is the thing, right? So it is disgusting. And then they're you know, these people like, oh, don't pray. You're not allowed to pray outside clinics or hospitals or this or that. You know, oh no, you know, 1 minute, right? You know, on Tuesday, it's like, hey, we've got this new European Union law. It's called freedom of expression. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression. Like singing that on a Monday, and then by the time we get to Tuesday, it's no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't express yourself here or there. So we haven't got the right to freedom of expression, have we? At all. In fact, every single new law you come out with is against some freedom of expression that we cannot do. More and more acts. So it's absolute, complete tosh, right? And these are the people who claim that, you know, scumbags on the streets cannot get along with each other. Why are they fighting all the time? Why are they arguing? You know, why are they robbing, cheating and stealing, right? Oh no, it's the right and honourable, the elected MPs who get on like a house on fire as long as they vote the way that Starmer asks, right? Because these are the diversity and inclusion megalords, right? But apparently they can't get along with each other, you know, for 10 seconds. So, you know, oh no, we're the well-behaved people. We are the respect. It's Keir Starmer's respect order. You've got a respect order, right? You respect these people. They get along very, 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 very well, extremely well. That, you know, no one had even believed that, you know, they were even on the same pie. They get on so well. You know, this is the thing. And to be honest, I think they're putting far too much through government, you know. There shouldn't be a manifesto. There shouldn't be policies because, you know, it's much too easy for them to get this rubbish law through government that nobody wants, right? Only Tony Blair, you know, Tony Blair's overlord master plan, right? That's all they're going for anyway. If there were loads of different MPs, right, it's better if they don't agree on something because they would only agree on something if it really was a good idea and if people really wanted it, right? Surely, right? And, then you don't get crap ideas through, rubbish ones that people don't want, right? And, if it really was a good idea, then everyone would vote for it. Surely, if you've got a parliament full of people from the country, if someone comes up with a good idea, why wouldn't they vote for it? Why would they not vote for it if it was such a good idea? Exactly. So, this Blair, Euro, Third Reich, planned future, this destiny of mankind, which they've already worked out for us, it's not our idea, it's not our plan, it's their idea, their plan, their business, their platforms, their inventions, their tools, their things, right? And this is kind of really why Extinction Rebellion want this Citizens' Assembly, right? But, I mean, we wouldn't need a Citizens' Assembly if we still had juries in the civil courts, for example, and things like that, because, a lot of these big companies wouldn't have been able to get away with what they're doing. So, I think the Labour and the Conservative Party are, in my opinion, if people knew the law and how it applies to elections, I think that those parties really should be facing serious legal challenges. And if the whole country can't come together, and put £5,000 for an election petition, they're meant to be debating it in Parliament. But this is the thing with these MPs. They're not debating it in Parliament because even if we collect 3 million signatures, they won't even sniff it. And how are you even going to have an inquiry about it when their party's the only ones who can initiate an inquiry? It's completely and utterly, totally corrupt. It's become corrupt. And that's pretty much where I am with it now. And I've just realised that they're not really allowed to be mentioning the Labour Party and Conservatives, and that's the only reason why they're the main two parties. Because the press have, given them an entourage and standing ovation, a perpetual standing ovation.